With the advent of shows like Critical Role, the way we consume D&D content has been changed forever. And since then, the podcast forum has really taken off, with seemingly endless avenues to find D&D content, whether it be video or podcast. Standing out in this market is key. Hi, I'm Mike, and today on Session 0 with Games Played Badly, I interview one of those podcasters. Not only do they have a D&D podcast, but it's a dual narrative podcast very unique to the space. And that interview starts now. Okay, so Jemarc, why don't you, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I know that you have a podcast that's really unique. I did give it a listen, and I think it's better that you explain exactly what the podcast is about.
Sure. I'm gonna make you full screen, so I'm actually looking at you for the audience, not just like to the side.
Right.
All right, there we go. So I am Jemarc Accento. I am the CEO/CCO of We Are Heroes Productions LLC. It's a production company that I made with some friends, but that I'm running a bunch of stuff for. And I am the co-writer and performer in the Tabletop for the End of the World podcast. We are the only dual narrative actual play podcast on planet Earth. And what I mean by that is that our podcast very uniquely tells two stories simultaneously. It is about four people who live in a dystopian America 500 years in the future, very, very, very late capitalism succeeding, and the entire country has been taken over by a corrupt corporation called Potreblet, which is the Russian word for consume. Russian word for consume. And what they have done is they've taken this virtual reality system that everyone had been plugged into for years, and they kicked out anybody who wasn't rich or influential, and they're forcing everybody else to live in the outside world. And so the four players of this D&D game discover this ancient game of Dungeons and Dragons and end up playing it for comfort, but then get swept up in a revolution against the big corporate overlords. And it just kind of was born from two things. One was my best friend got me into actual play gaming through Deadlands years ago. Maybe it was my first year of college, his third year of college, the summer in between. And he got me hooked, and then we stopped playing for 10 years. And I'd ask him at least once a year, let's play another game. And it never happened. And I was like, you know what? We're both theater kids. I'm going to appeal to his vanity and narcissism because I have that too. So I was like, what if we make a show? And he was interested then, but then we realized, there's like 50 billion actual play podcasts now. And I was like, well, what if we make it harder for ourselves? And let's add a dual narrative. And then the dual narrative was born out of my general frustration with the previous administration. And so anytime I felt angry or frustrated about something that was happening, I would satirize it within the world of the podcast. My proudest moment was for the first Pride was it the first Pride? The first Pride into our show, I had the corporation selling radiosexual and proud buttons, which is people who are sexually attracted to mutants, essentially. And they're like, we support you. We're selling radiosexual and proud buttons. And then the next month, because we were releasing episodes at the time in real time, quote unquote, for all you audio listeners. And the next month, the corporation seized the assets of anybody who bought a button and kicked them out of the city, which is basically, it's just me taking all of the concepts of capitalism and removing any pretense. Like, they don't need to hide anymore. They've won. And how would that come to be? So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I gave the first episode a bit of a listen. I think I had it reversed in my mind. I thought that people were chained into like a virtual community, and that for them that they were worker bees, and it was almost like a Matrix thing in my mind. So I had it reversed.
Yeah.
But that's just as cool. So now, how long have you guys been doing that?
So we just celebrated our second year anniversary last. So it's 2021. We're recording this, so it was last August. We celebrated our second year anniversary. And we actually we've had the ending plan since our second arc. So maybe 3 months into production, we knew how we wanted it to end. Because it started out just as like I just wanted to play D&D with my best friends and have a jolly old time. And then we started getting fans in like Norway and Canada and all over the world who are like sending us fan art and cosplaying our characters. We're like, oh, we have to think about this now. And so we took some time into it, and it's been an incredible journey for sure.
That's fantastic. So I mean, now that you kind of have your story arc or the end of your story arc planned, when do you think that's going to be done?
Right now, so we release episodes every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's looking like it will be done sometime mid 2022. And I'm actually currently in pre-production for season 2 of the show, where I'll actually be writing we call it the meta narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be writing the meta narrative and DMing, or being a game master for a game. So that will be an interesting challenge. I've never worn both hats before, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of writing when you think about it. I mean you have obviously meta and meta, so
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot going on. From that standpoint, so when did you start playing D&D?
So I actually didn't start playing D&D itself until we started recording this podcast. I played. I got my start in Deadlands from the Savage Worlds rulebook, an extension of that. And I was super into that, and then did that for a number of years. I actually played Monster of the Week a few times, and actually my bachelor party was the night before my wedding in the hotel. I just got my friends together, and I was like, I just want to play tabletop game, guys. Like, I don't know if you've seen Parks and Rec. I'm basically Ben Wyatt in that situation. I was like, I just want to play board games and drink. That's all I need. And so I ran a Monster of the Week game with some friends, and then really got into D&D as a part of this whole creating the podcast.
Well, now how much of the pandemic has played into the podcast?
A lot of the emotional themes that have come from the pandemic, I would say, but nothing literally portrayed. By the time 2020 and COVID reared its head, that's such a huge world-changing thing that to suddenly introduce that into the world we've already established would feel a little dishonest and a little bit like kind of trying to stay relevant, and I didn't like that. But the podcast itself already has these themes of isolation, the need to reach out and connect. I mean, the first 2 or 3 arcs of the podcast, none of our characters are even existing in the same space. Kevin, who plays Vert Batikin the Gnome, lives in a bunker somewhere. Manny, who plays Torngesh the Dragonborn Paladin, lives outside of the city next to a blood ocean surrounded by beasts. And it actually served as a really great tool for us because we knew our audio quality was going to be bad at the start, and so we had an in-canon excuse for that. So if people are like, your audio is kind of terrible, I was like, well, we found our microphone under a bridge. What do you want from us?
We somehow found a set of dice in a burnout building.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've given it a listen. With all the interviews that we're doing, I haven't had a lot of chance. There's so many people doing so many amazing things. It's hard for me to listen to everything. But I knew that after I listened to the first episode, I was like, this is something special. We should talk.
Aww.
So it was very good.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. Also, love your Firefly t-shirt.
Oh, thank you. I don't get a chance to wear it very often. I'm not a big Brown fan. I don't know why I bought a brown shirt, but I did. So
that's the main reason why I haven't bought any Firefly merch. It's the 2 colors I can't wear, brown and orange.
Yeah.
They just don't work on me. But you're rocking it. You look good.
Thank you. So was D&D your first TTRPG, or your first?
No. Yeah. So my first ever TTRPG, I actually have it right here. It's called Deadlands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's based off the Savage Worlds rulebook. So it's essentially, what if the Civil War ended in a draw and magic existed? And so that was my very first introduction. Mitch, who DMs our actual podcast right now, is the one who introduced me to that, and he ran like a Monster of the Week supernatural inspired game using the Deadlands rulebook. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Who are your fellow castmates?
Yeah, sure. So we have our main cast, and then we have our larger meta cast, which is one of the cool things. So our main cast is myself, Manny Lugo, who plays Torngesh Dragonborn Paladin. Mitch Monin is our DM, and then we have Kevin Heil, who is the company's chief technical officer, and also he plays Vert Vatican, who we affectionately call the Murder Gnome, who's a gnome sorcerer. And then our expanded cast, we have so many different people: Doria Marshall, Hezekiah Corbin, Kaylee Floyd. Actually, some cast, Loki, who he's actually from Norway. Once a year, we do Inktober, and we choose somebody to voice act a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so impressed with everything he did. I just wrote a character for him.
Nice.
And then he became the most beloved character on the podcast, which was a huge surprise, but not an unpleasant one. And yeah, so just a very large, awesome cast. We also have, what's Jazz's last name? I don't remember Jazz's last name, but she voices our current villain, who's a big Russian man named Pokovnik Larong. So that's our current villain for our current arc. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. The more you talk, the more I realize I have to really sink my teeth into your podcast.
I believe in you.
So what other game systems have you played?
Yeah. So I've played Monster of the Week. Mm-hmm. I've dabbled in, we had a Patreon exclusive show for a bit. We only ended up recording 3 episodes because of scheduling issues. Mm-hmm. But it was on the Call of Cthulhu rule set, which was awful, and I never want to touch it ever again. And then I haven't touched Pathfinder yet, but it's on my list. So yeah, so Monster of the Week, Deadlands, D&D, and Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, I've definitely played Call of Cthulhu, and was that the version based off the? Was it still made by Palladium?
Let me see. This one is made by Chaosium Inc.
Okay. There was a version that was I believe made based off the Palladium gaming system, which was another kind of D20 type system.
See, that sounds reasonable. The version I've played is based off using percentile dice, and success is in reverse of every other system out there. The lower number you get, the more successful you are. And then the way of calculating percentages is another layer of confusing. No. And running that was a challenge.
Yeah, the Palladium version was, did you have sanity points?
We did have sanity points.
Okay, so yeah. I mean, the sanity points, very, very similar to D&D from the standpoint of dice mechanics, things like that. But I did play it for just a short bit, and I enjoyed the mythos of it. I've been there. I'm glad I didn't play that one.
It is not easy, and I was the one who kept pushing it. I was like, I want to run this, mainly because like I love the Lovecraft verse. I mean, H.P. Lovecraft himself was terrible, but what people have done with what he's created that's the kind of horror that I'm into. Just cosmic horror and existential horror.
Right. Have you watched Lovecraft Country at all?
I haven't had the chance because I don't have HBO. But I've only heard amazing things from everybody I know.
All right, folks, we're chipping in and getting them HBO just for Lovecraft Country. You've got to do it.
Ooh, take care of me, everyone.
Throw shekels at me, shekels. Yeah, it's a great show. Some really good Cthulhu mythos in that show. It's set in the time of the civil rights movement. And
it's based around Tulsa, right?
Right.
I'm remembering. Yeah.
And that storyline is so powerful on its own. The show was fantastic. It's just fantastic.
So if anyone wants to throw some money at me, feel free to throw enough for an HBO subscription if you feel real generous. My wife's in med school right now, so if you really want to throw that,
pay for med school.
Pay for med school. It's fine.
There you go. I think it's completely reasonable. There have been less appropriate GoFundMe's out there. Let me tell you.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, I'm not asking for a GoFundMe because I did the Capitol riot. I'm asking for a GoFundMe for a doctor.
Right,
like, that's
exactly
different strokes. Also, I did not do the Capitol riot.
Yeah, no. That was a whole thing. I watched that live, and I was just mortified the entire time.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Yep, it was a thing.
Yeah.
Much like the pandemic, it's a thing. Like, there's a whole thing.
Yeah, right?
That's something we can talk about offline, but yes, it's a thing.
No problem. A painted Space Marine in the back that I see?
Here?
No, over your left shoulder.
Oh, no, that's from a game called Titanfall.
Oh, that's Titanfall. Okay, yeah. It's hard to tell with the shadows, so I was like, that's either a giant Space Marine or something else.
No, it's a Titan. My husband wanted to play Titanfall, and I don't know why, because he's not very good at first player FPS games at all.
The giant
And
robots.
yeah, he loves robots. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I went ahead and bought him the game, but as a gift, I got him like there's a super special collector's edition, which comes with that huge thing.
Oh, that's so
So
nice.
yeah, and then he's like, oh my god, this is amazing, and he plays Titanfall for like 10 minutes. Is like, fuck it.
No! Well, at least you got him the statue.
Well, no,
You
he
got-
was, and the thing is, you could hear the 12-year-olds in the background going, and he was like, I can't do it.
Oh
I can't
no.
do it. I was like, oh no.
How long have you and your husband been together?
25 years.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah. It's been quite the ride. So he puts up with a lot of my crap, that's for sure.
That's love.
Yeah, agreed. um so are there any other gaming systems you'd be interested in that had your eyes on?
Yeah, so I actually have one that I helped kickstart by the same people who made Monster of the Week.
Hmm.
Um, Thirsty Lesbians with Swords.
Nice.
Real excited to try that out. There's another one called, I want to say it's called Big Eyes Small Mouths,
Hmm.
which is an anime themed system
Hmm.
where you just create characters that live in an anime world, which sounds hilarious and awesome. I find that like for me playing I don't know how inappropriate you got on your podcast, but this is here we go. You can decide to cut it out or not.
Well, hold on. Adult content. Everyone, close your ears.
Playing tabletop games is a lot like engaging in porn.
Mm.
You start out, it's the really vanilla stuff, the one everyone goes with, but the more you do it, the more you want the weirder things.
Yeah.
You know, you start out with your basic dark elf ranger, and then you end up with a fearbulg with an identity crisis who thinks they're a gnome. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's where we're at. And so that's so as far as rule sets, I just enjoy playing with a bunch of different stuff that's weird, as long as it's approachable. Honestly, I often find that like people who are like, for me, I'm more about the role playing experience, and then the rule sets are fun. But if they're overcomplicated and you have to be somebody who's really rules oriented to enjoy it, good for you. But that's not my cup of tea.
Right. I get that. I think I've been playing for various systems for probably 30 some odd years now, but D&D's always been kind of one of my go-tos, and I've DM'd a bunch, and a lot of times when I DM, the rules are really secondary to me. I know the constraints of those rules present. Are people able to go outside of that? Sure. If you're able to give me a good reason why. My games typically tend to be a very heavy role play. You get your encounters in there, but it's all about the players.
Absolutely. And you're one of the players, so it's important you enjoy it too.
You're absolutely right. People
Just
don't
the
realize
best
that.
promo anyone can give is that the DM is a player too, guys.
Yeah, you roll and you miss. I mean, I've had adventures where I've written these epic, kind of not TPK, but close to it. Like I know this is gonna be tough for the players, and have watched them systematically beat me to pieces because they can't roll anything over a 6.
Oh man, that's
So
what we do with our for our podcast. That's what we do with his puzzles. It actually got to the point where Mitch, our DM, had to write in his notes, "Never make drywall a thing," because we literally got through one puzzle by punching through drywall to get to the other side, and he was so angry.
well, and here's the thing: is the great thing about him is that he allowed that to happen because he thought about it. He
Yeah.
realized it was possible, and it was a flaw in his own design, and he let you
Yeah.
exploit it. There are
Oh yeah.
DMs out there who won't let you do that. They'll say, "Nope, there's a wall behind you. Do that, and there's a wall behind it," because they are really forcing you into a situation.
Yeah.
And while that style of DMing is completely appropriate, I hate that.
Yeah.
I have ways of moving people where I want them to go if I really want them to go that direction. I find it
yeah.
a lot more fun when people find ways around stuff. Like I'll have a this epic trek that somebody's gonna go on or the group's gonna go on, and they'll find some way to get there in half the time and completely blow through half the adventures that I had set up. But that's fine because that's the benefit of playing with real people. They figure this stuff out. It's a lot of fun to watch people conquer you, you know?
Oh yeah, and also, I mean, that's just stuff you can use later, right? Oh, you bypassed my dragon in the forest. Well, the dragon's in the castle now, and you never have to tell them that. Like, so it's always. I mean, I hope you didn't give them a dragon first right out the gate, but just as an example.
That would be DMing 101. Don't stick a dragon on a level 1 group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a real chill dragon, like a Dragon Tails dragon. Then
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely, right? Or like Puff the Magic Dragon, like. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just let's hang out.
So, do you have any other hobbies outside of what you're doing right now?
Too many. Yeah. So I'm actually a military brat. And so my life has been defined by get a hobby because you're going to move a lot. And so I love drawing. Actually, as a result of the podcast, I picked up music composition. So I've had a lot of fun doing stuff with that. When I moved in with my wife, she was vegan before I was vegan, and I couldn't justify buying separate food, and I wasn't going to be a terrible person and make her stop this lifestyle change. So I was like, yeah, I'll be vegan, but I had to teach myself how to cook because she doesn't cook. So I was like, okay, well, I'll learn how to cook now. So it's just a series of life circumstances. But I think my real passion, I would say, is acting. I miss acting on stage so much, and I hope eventually I can get back to it. Like, we do have the advent of Zoom, which is amazing, but it's not quite the same as the energy in the same physical space. And there's definitely an energy when you have people you're interacting with directly, for sure.
Okay, I have one last little bit here, which I do with everybody, called my speed round.
Oh, fun.
So, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You just, whatever comes to mind, you can expound on your answer if you wish. It's just kind of fun. So what's your favorite board game?
My favorite board game right now is Betrayal at the House on the Hill.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do like that game. It's, oof, man, that's a tough game sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I love, that it has tons of replayability. I haven't yet played. I've only played through maybe 4 scenarios so far, and I got the game years ago, but I love it. And I just like that, you can also perform a little if you want to add a little bit of spice to it if you wanted to. So it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do like the game. I've played it 5 or 6 times, and so replayability is high, but wow, it can get brutal.
Yeah.
Especially when there is a period of time where one of the rooms launches itself in the air, and everyone has to get out of the room, but there's only one parachute. And so you're basically scrambling against each other to get. It's crazy.
That's so good. I did one where we immediately died when the traitor was revealed.
Yeah. Because
the monster caused a flood, and we were all in the basement with no way out.
Yeah.
And so we were just like, well, that's it.
It's like a haunted house version of Dungeon Quest in some cases.
Yeah,
Because you're building it at the same time, so it's pretty awesome. Favorite D&D book or favorite homebrew stuff that you've worked with?
Ooh, that's a good question. Favorite homebrew stuff that I've worked with. I'm just gonna say anything that anyone gives me to play with. Honestly, if we're talking about homebrew, I don't think I've ever actually played a module game. Every game I've played has been homebrew, just because I love seeing what people bring to the table and what they pull out of their minds. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but
no, it's not. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. Through doing these interviews and really trying to like bring the ttrpg community together, it is amazing what people are producing. I can't read it all. I can't play it all. I can't Patreon it all because I'd be broke. But it's just, there's so much good stuff out there by quality people. I totally get what you're saying.
Hey, even just giving people a chance to tell their story, you're doing like huge amount of things right there, then and there. And your goal to reunite the community, especially just in a community that's become so saturated too. And there are all these talented people who aren't getting recognitions because they're not your Matthew Mercers or your McElroys. And so I think that's wonderful. Yeah, get the word out there. And then someone's making something great, then they can get other people to notice them. So for sure.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. I don't know how you're going to answer this because you may be split, but Kirk or Spock?
Oh. Uh, you're right. I am split. I'm going to say if we're talking about the original series, which of course we are.
Well, we'll go ahead and limit it to that. Sure.
Yeah. So the original series, I'll say Kirk. Just because when the time came for somebody to take that leadership position and make the difficult calls and do away with utilitarianism, because it was what was right to do, that's what Kirk would do. If we're talking about the new series, I'll say Spock. Just because, well, they kind of downplayed his whole Vulcanness a little bit for that and made him more human. So like for me, that version of Spock is more of an actualization of like if Kirk and Spock made a baby.
Yeah, right. Oh, it'd be still my beating heart. Fantasy or post-apocalyptic?
Post-apocalyptic, I'll say. And the main reason why is because I grew up doing a lot of fantasy and reading a lot of fantasy and engaging with it, and it was fun. Now that I'm older, maybe because I'm jaded, I've been getting really into just post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah, the last administration didn't help that, did it?
Not a ton, no.
So how long have you and your wife been married?
So we've only been married for 2 years. We've been together for it'll be 6 at the end of this year, so 5 years. And we were actually engaged 6 months into being in a relationship, but we had a 3-year, we had a 3-year long engagement because we knew that's what it was going to be. Which made my favorite joke in the world, which is whenever people asked us like, how are we doing? I was like, well, we got engaged 6 months in, and then I'd have like a real dreaded look on my face and be like, honestly, I don't know if I could do it anymore. And people who don't know you very well get really freaked out about the potential of having that conversation.
Oh no. Yeah. That's one way to make somebody want to crawl inside themselves and run away. Yeah.
Yeah, a terrible person.
Well, I do appreciate you coming to talk to me. Hopefully we can do it again. I'd love to hear more. Once you guys get closer, it'd be interesting as to talk to you after you kind of wrap.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I could bring some of the other cast members on board for that too.
That would be awesome. Maybe do like a cast member reunion thing. Like, all you guys come back to kind of recap your experiences with the podcast.
Yeah, I think that would be an absolutely awesome time. And we'll have to see how big the cast is at that point too.
Yeah, right.
Just because we keep adding voice act, because like representation is super important to me.
Yes.
And so I'm always reaching out, trying to cast like people from diverse backgrounds. The original goal, so our cast is comprised of 2 POC, 2 white guys. I was trying to have like pretty much all POC and then Mitch. But you work with the resources and the people you got. So.
But I do appreciate you coming on the show to talk to us, and I wish you all the best. And
Thank you.
Everybody, make sure you sign up and listen to their podcast because it's fantastic.
Everyone, you can find us literally anywhere. Tabletop for the End of the World on any podcast streaming platform. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at TFewCast. That's TFEW cast. And then we have a cosplay contest going on right now with cash prizes. Oh, wow. So if anybody's interested, it's $500 for the top winner, and then it goes down from there. And also free merchandise prizes as well, because we have a whole bunch of merch in our merch store. And we just have good people in our Discord. If you want to chat with just a giant group of just LGBTQ D&D nerds, that's all our Discord is pretty much.
There you go. I'll definitely pop in from time to time. There are so many Discords, I can't keep track of them all. So I try and join everyone for a little bit and say hi and things like that.
Completely understand. Well, the goal is for you to join, and then we'll just suck you in by being amazing, obviously. So
flattery will get you everywhere.